same spot, earlier in the game. So he had a look at it, and man, just a ton of confidence. And the minute you heard that ball go off his foot, it was a thundering kick. I think we all knew it was going through the uprights.
We know what we can do offensively, but just got to put the pieces together. We just got to get more experience. Like you said, it's a lot of new guys, a lot of new faces. So just having a week at it is tough. But at the same time, we operated and did what we can to try to pull this win off, and we came close, but it wasn't enough, and we continue to grow from it.
Well, I mentioned it earlier. The Saints have now been involved in 3 games with multiple lead changes in the final minute. November 1970, Tom Dempsey kicked a then-record 63-yard field goal as time expired after the Lions had taken the lead. Halloween 99, after a New Orleans go-ahead field goal, Kevin Johnson caught this tipped Hail Mary from Tim Couch as the expansion Browns won their first game since returning to the league following an 0-7 start. And then last night, after Deshaun Watson led the Texans to a go-ahead score on a drive that covered 75 yards in 2 plays, Drew Brees needed just 37 seconds to drive the Saints down, and then Will Lutz sealed the deal with a 58-yard field goal. And Brees is right. You sort of knew almost instantaneously when he kicked that ball that it was going through. There never really was any doubt. Let's talk about, Coach, that final drive for Drew Brees. We'll talk about Deshaun Watson in a minute, but for Brees, just one after another to put them in the right spot.
Well, he's the poise, a veteran. This guy understands exactly where he wants to go with the ball, hitting Teddy Ginn there. And he just, everything is in, he has command and control. And so for the defense, you've got to continue to compete. You've got to have strong tackling. You've got to challenge everybody. You got to get people down.
Well, speaking of that, the question then, what happened with this Texans defense, Ryan? Because they had, you don't want to simplify, but they had one job in this instance, and that is to keep this team out of field goal range.
You have one job, and the defense coordinator, Romeo Crennel, is going to be blamed for a lot of this, but the players have to make plays, and Aaron Colvin needs to understand there with 6 seconds on the clock, they're not going to try anything down the seam and beat him deep to get a pass in and maybe get down and get a timeout when there's only 6 seconds. So there has to be some type of situational awareness. But what happened was he was beat down the seam by Ted Ginn early on in the 4th quarter, and he had a little stage fright. He said, I can't be the guy to give up this play, but you have to have confidence in your preparation. You have to have confidence in your technique, and you need to understand the situation. That was a totally blown technique play by a player, not a coach.
Do you have any doubt, Coach, and I heard you talk about that this morning, that Crennel had something in his arsenal? I mean, he's been around the league a long time, that he sort of knew what he was dialing up, but he can't go out there and execute.
Well, I mean, you just look at the tape. Mm-hmm. Everybody else is pressed up. There's only one guy that's playing off, and he had a scar from earlier in the game. He got beat in the seam earlier in the game, and so he's trying to respect the speed, but that's just a point in time. Right. He's got to challenge the receiver and maybe even make that an incomplete pass right there. I mean, get up in there and play football and compete.
Especially when you are competing against a future Hall of Fame quarterback who can put the ball anywhere he wants to put it.
Well, absolutely. The other thing is, too, Coach talked about the other guys being pressed up. So Drew Brees, being as intelligent and as experienced as he is, he's going to find that matchup. I'm going to look at the dude who's 8 yards off and bailing out. I'm probably going to throw this quick hitch to Ted Ginn so he can get down and get us in field goal range. At least give some type of disguise and play the game with a quarterback who is as intelligent as any other quarterback in this league.
I almost hate to bring this up, Dan. I'm sorry, but lost in all this, maybe because the Saints won, is the officiating error that we saw. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine? Because obviously this is their first game back since, the no call heard round the world. And again, there was a mistake and it wasn't correct.
There was a mistake at
which
the
is
end
the definition of mistake.
It was not only a mistake, but it was also incorrect. It was at the end of the first half, right? And they're moving down the field, similar to what happened at the end of the second half. And they had it was ruled a 4th and short, and they went up to the line to try and run the play to get over it. But then the official up top stopped the play and reviewed it to see if they got the first down, which they did. But you'll notice right here, 41 seconds left. Now 26 seconds left when they get up there and run the play. So this is when the officials stop the clock to review it. They review it, and they find out that it was a first down, but they said there has to be a 10-second runoff by rule because the clock didn't stop. Gave the Saints a chance to use the timeout. They wisely said no. but they started it at 26 seconds instead of 41, which is when they should have begun the review, because that's when the previous play ended. So
another controversy with officials,
yeah,
right?
and the Saints
with half
in New
the
Orleans
stands dressed as referees,
right. Yeah, can we
and
talk
yelling,
about that?
waving yellow flags.
How does that? Do people put out the word? You just get the memo?
You asking me what's going through the mind of Saints fans?
Well,
with
yeah,
regard
if
to
you can tell me
officiating?
that, we'll be.
I don't know. Except that they're mad.
This is also
got that
the
part.
city that boycotted the Super Bowl. This is
Right,
the
well, I
city
remember that too.
refused to watch it. So when it comes to the New Orleans Saints, it's easy to get the people of New Orleans on board with pretty much anything you want to do.
Imagine if they had lost that game, how many rule changes would they have pushed through at the next owners' meeting?
Absolutely.
That's what I want to know.
They're not watching the Super Bowl
They'd
for
have brought it
like
back to
10 years. All right, look, before we talk about the Texas' biggest concern, and if you don't know what it was, you didn't see that game, my goodness. Just let me show you, because here is the life of Deshaun Watson, okay? Drops back, Demarius Davis flies in on the delayed blitz, misses the sack, but Malcolm Brown does it. I mean, he was under pressure, gentlemen, all night.
The thing here, and Andrew Luck recently retired.
This is what concerns me.
Yes, and when you look at Deshaun Watson, we speak many times about how fearless he is as a quarterback. And a lot of these plays that would be sacks on quarterbacks who aren't as mobile as Deshaun Watson, he's actually getting out of the way of the pressure. They should be sacks as well. When you play the game the way he plays, when you're going to have some call runs like we saw on 4th and 1 for a touchdown, you have to find ways to protect him. So whether it's chipping with the back, whether it's making sure he gets the ball out of his hand quickly, or if you're Bill O'Brien, coaching him to throw some of these footballs away, you have to find a way to protect your franchise, because it can't be every year we're sitting at home wondering what's going on with Deshaun Watson.
Let's be clear, too, if without Deshaun Watson, and this is true with most quarterbacks, but certainly with this Texas team, this discussion is over. I mean, this is an entirely different team. And 6 sacks, and I don't even know how many times he was pressured, Coach. I mean, it didn't stop.
He was
Way
hit
too much.
So, you know, I love the addition of Laramie Tunsil. Okay, I think they needed a tackle. All right, they got that. I love Titus Howard. All right, might have got overdrafted, but still a good football player. That's all fine. But in order to protect the quarterback, 5 men have to be working together, along with the back helping out. And they're just not in unison right now. The offensive line last night was beat way too often, too much leakage, and their quarterback was taking way too many hits.
Part of the problem is everybody's new. Tunsil's been there a week. Right. They traded for him a week ago. You talk about chipping with backs. Carlos Hyde's been there a week. Duke Johnson's been there about 3 weeks. And the left guard was supposed to be Titus Howard, the first-round pick. But right guard, left, one of the guards was supposed to be Titus Howard, the first-round pick. He was hurt, didn't play in the game. So they had a replacement at the guard, and they have Tunsil, who just got there. And I think there's reason to think it can get better.
Okay, the other thing is this,
the longer
they
stay together.
When is it going to become an organizational problem and not just this team? Because if you look at quarterbacks through Bill O'Brien's history with the Houston Texans, many of these guys have gotten hurt because they've been under siege. They've been under pressure. So this is something they're going to have to change from a schematic standpoint as well in order to help out Deshaun Watson.
Personnel-wise, they did spend their first and second-round draft picks on tackles, and they just traded 2 more first-round picks for Tunsil.
Get another one.
So they obviously understand the problem and are addressing it. The question is it a little too late in the offseason to be doing that, and are they doing it the right way?
Well, listen, I don't know about this. This is one way, but they have rewarded, according to our Field Gates this afternoon, Nick Martin, their center, with a new 3-year, $33 million deal. So there's that.
Top of my head, he's about the 4th or 5th center to get an extension the last 2 weeks. So good month to be a center.
It is a good month to be a center. Not nearly as good a month to be the quarterback of the Texans. Panic or patience on this offensive line. Is week 1, is it too early to jump to too many conclusions?
No,
Will they get it together?
Not with the offensive line of the Houston Texans, because this has become a habit. This isn't an anomaly. They've had Deshaun Watson running for his life for the last 3 years, and it doesn't seem to be changing now. Obviously, Laramie Tunsil becoming more adept in what he needs to do and understanding the playbook a little bit more and helping him work as a unit with the other 4 guys, that'll be huge because he has the talent. But they're going to have to figure out a way to make sure Deshaun Watson stays upright, because even though he is a physical, talented runner, this is a guy who we've seen with not only physical outward injuries, but internal injuries because of the pressure he's been under in Houston.
Listen, we are a season removed from him having to take a bus to a game because he couldn't fly with lung issues. I mean, that is mind-boggling to me, Coach, that you wouldn't do everything in your power to protect this guy.
Look, I think Bill's trying.
Yeah. Right, well, yeah, I'm sure it's not for lack of effort.
Okay, so the bottom line is it's going to require patience. But after watching that, I'm panicking.
I like it.
I'm a little worried right now.
Listen,
So
it was the first thing I said this morning. Just turn the studio red and leave it red until we're done, because if you don't panic after that, and look, we'll see. It's one game. I get it. It doesn't make a whole season, but man, it could have ended their season had he been hurt.
Problem is, you ever start 0-1 as a coach in the NFL?
Of course.
Of course. It's terrible, right? Like everything that goes wrong is an affirmation of everything everybody said would go wrong about your team, right? So if the offensive line for the Texans looks bad in week 1, and if Mitchell Trubisky looks bad for the Bears in week 1, if the Browns look undisciplined in week 1, then that must be the problem.
But don't you think?
Right, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a problem for the rest of the 15 games.
I think the.
Oh, come on, let us have our overreaction.
Here's the scary part. Here's the scary part about being 0-1. It's when you confirm some things. When something is an issue going into the season and you are a little bit nervous about it, and that's the reason you lose. If you come out and Deshaun Watson is protected and DeAndre Hopkins continues to drop balls and that's why you lose the game, you know what you say? This is the dude who doesn't drop footballs. We know he will be better next week.
Right.
But when your quarterback is consistently under siege and we see Deshaun Watson that way again, it is a little cause for panic for me.
Well, that's a fair point, but yours is too. We're gonna, we'll try the reasonable
It's only
approach.
week 1.
let's not forget he did deliver 2 strikes.
No,
touchdown.
Yeah, the reason
I feel badly because it overshadows.
The reason they lost was Drew Brees.
The man did his job. Let's be clear. Lost it all.